Jack Moore was having a perfectly normal Tuesday. The summer sun warmed his back as he sat at the edge of Pine Lake, his fishing rod propped against a rock while he opened another can of beer from his cooler. Years of retirement from the air. Force had taught him to appreciate these quiet moments. No emergencies, no orders, just the occasional tug on his line and the chirping of birds. That peace lasted until the sky rumbled. At first, Jack thought it was thunder, but the clear blue sky told a different story. The rumbling grew louder and the surface of the lake began to ripple in perfect circles. Jack took another sip of his beer and watched as a massive shadow fell across the water. "Well, that's not a weather balloon," he muttered to himself. The object hovering above the lake was definitely not from Earth. Its metallic surface gleamed with an iridescent blue sheen that shifted colors as it moved. The ship, because what else could it be, was roughly the size of a commercial airplane but shaped like a perfect teardrop. Jack watched with mild interest as it slowly descended toward the clearing about 50 yards from his fishing spot. Most people would run. Some might faint. A few would pull out their phones to document the moment. Jack simply took another sip of his beer. When the ship landed, it barely made a sound, just a soft hiss as landing gear extended from its smooth underside. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Jack considered whether he should pack up his fishing gear but decided against it. The fish had been biting well before the interruption. A seam appeared in the ship's side, widening into a doorway from which a ramp extended to touch the ground. Light spilled out from inside, and then figures began to emerge. Jack straightened, slightly in his folding chair. The creatures walking down the ramp were tall, maybe 7 feet, with blue-gray skin that matched their ship. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But that's where the similarities to humans ended. Their limbs were longer, thinner, and seemed to have an extra joint. Their heads had no visible hair, and their eyes were large, solid orbs of deep purple. 7 of them emerged and stood at the base of the ramp, scanning the area until they spotted Jack. They conferred briefly, their language a series of clicks and whistles that carried across the water. Then, with what seemed like cautious deliberation, they began walking toward him. Jack reeled in his line and set his rod aside. He stood up, stretched his back, and waited for them to approach. The lead alien stopped about 10 feet away. It wore something like a uniform with symbols Jack didn't recognize, though he'd worn enough military decorations in his time to recognize rank when he saw it. This one was in charge. The alien raised a hand with 6 long fingers in what might have been a greeting. Then it spoke, and to Jack's surprise, he understood the words. "We come in peace. Representative of Earth. I am Commander Vrex of the Zilarian Exploration Fleet representing the Galactic Confederation. We have been observing your world and deemed it ready for first contact." Jack nodded. "Jack Moore. Nice to meet you." The alien, Vrex, seemed taken aback by the casual response. He turned to his companions, and they exchanged more clicks and whistles. "You do not seem alarmed by our presence," Vrex said finally. Jack shrugged. "Figured it was just a matter of time before you all showed up. Universe is too big for us to be alone." He gestured to his cooler. "Beer?" This caused another flurry of communication among the aliens. One of them pulled out a device and scanned the cooler from a distance. "Your offer of a fermented beverage indicates hospitality," Vrex said. "This is unexpected. Our protocols suggested humans would react with fear or aggression to our appearance." "Maybe you should update your protocols," Jack suggested. He reached into the cooler and held out a can. "It's nothing fancy, but it's cold." Vrex hesitated, then stepped forward and accepted the can with a careful grasp of his long fingers. He examined it with obvious curiosity. "Our research indicates this is a recreational intoxicant," he said. Jack grinned. "That's one way to put it." The alien was still examining the can when Jack's phone rang. The aliens startled at the sound, hands moving to devices at their belts. Jack held up a calming hand as he pulled the phone from his pocket. "Just my phone," he explained, then answered. "Moore here. It was Bill from the town's small power plant. Jack had helped design the backup systems when he first moved to Pine Creek after his retirement, and they still called him whenever something went wrong. "Jack, we've got a situation at the plant." Bill's voice was tight with worry. "The cooling system is failing and none of the backups are kicking in. We're looking at a potential meltdown in the next hour if we can't get it fixed." Jack sighed. "On my way. Have you evacuated everyone within a mile?" "Working on it now." "How fast can you get here?" 20 minutes, Jack said, already gathering his things. He ended the call and looked at the aliens who were watching him with what he guessed was curiosity. Their expressions were hard to read. "Sorry, folks. We've got a situation that needs handling. Power plant's about to have a meltdown if I don't get over there." Vrex tilted his head. "Meltdown? This is dangerous?" "Could be, if we don't fix it. Nothing major. Just a small plant that powers our town, but if it goes, it'll make quite a mess." Jack finished packing his gear and picked up his car keys. Then, with a casual move that would later be described in thousands of official reports, across the galaxy he handed his open beer to Commander Vrex. "Hold my beer. I'll be right back." The aliens watched in absolute horror as Jack walked to his old pickup truck, tossed his fishing gear in the back, and drove off toward town, leaving them standing by the lake with a half-empty can of beer and a complete disruption of first contact protocols. Vrex turned to his second-in-command. "The human has departed to prevent a power plant disaster alone, with primitive tools, after consuming an intoxicant, and he expects to return." "Should we assist?" asked the second-in-command. Vrex looked down at the beer can in his hand. "I believe we should observe. This may provide invaluable insight into human behavior." What the aliens didn't know, as they followed Jack at a careful distance in their cloaked ship, was that this casual interaction would forever change how the galaxy viewed humans, and that "hold my beer" would soon become the most feared phrase in 17 star systems. 3 months had passed since the aliens landed by Pine Lake. The world had changed overnight when the news broke that humanity was not alone in the universe. There were protests, celebrations, panic, and wonder. But eventually, as humans often do, they adjusted to the new reality. Lisa Ramirez never expected to become Earth's first ambassador to the stars. Before the aliens arrived, she had been a diplomat working on trade agreements between nations. Now she represented an entire planet to a community of over 30 alien species in the Galactic Confederation. She sat in the massive council chamber on Proxima Centauri b, the closest exoplanet to Earth, and the site of the Confederation's regional headquarters. The room buzzed with alien languages, all translated through small devices in Lisa's ears. She had been on the planet for 2 weeks, learning the complex rules of interstellar politics. Beside her sat Steve Carter, a former Navy SEAL who had been selected as Earth security attaché. Steve had the calm confidence that came from facing death many times and living to tell about it. While Lisa navigated politics, Steve studied the aliens themselves, their movements, their weapons, their weaknesses. Ambassador Ramirez called, a voice from across the chamber. It belonged to Zurath, a tall, insect-like creature who served as the chief representative of the Dravix Empire. The chamber quieted as Zurath stepped into the central speaking area. The Dravix were not members of the Confederation, but rather its main rivals, controlling nearly a third of the known galaxy. "The Dravix Empire wishes to address the matter of the Taurus mining belt," Zurath announced, his mandibles clicking between words. Lisa straightened in her seat. The Taurus mining belt was a resource-rich asteroid field that both the Confederation and the Empire claimed. It had been a point of tension for decades. "The Empire proposes a resolution," Zurath continued. "A challenge, in the tradition of the ancients. One champion from each major species in the Confederation against our champion. The contest will take place in the northern wastelands of this very planet." Murmurs filled the chamber. Lisa leaned toward Kalor, the friendly Zarthian ambassador who had been helping her understand Confederation politics. "What kind of challenge?" she whispered. Kalor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "An endurance contest. The northern wastelands are toxic and dangerous. Competitors must navigate through them to reach a beacon. The first to arrive claims the territory for their alliance. The Empire's champion is General Devok, veteran of 100 battles, Zarath announced proudly. Who will represent Earth? Lisa felt all eyes in the chamber turn toward her. She hadn't been briefed on this possibility. Before she could respond, Steve leaned forward. Tell them I'll do it, he said quietly. Lisa hesitated. Are you sure? We don't know what's out there. Steve grinned. Can't be worse than SEAL training in the middle of winter. Lisa stood, her heart racing. Earth nominates security attaché. Steve Carter as our champion. Zarath's compound eyes studied Steve as he stood beside Lisa. The human appears fragile. Is this truly your best warrior? Steve just smiled and stepped forward. When do we start? The alien representatives murmured among themselves. Kalor leaned toward Lisa, voice low with concern. Ambassador, the Northern. Wastes are not suitable for human physiology. The atmosphere contains toxic compounds. The terrain includes acid lakes and radiation zones. Temperatures fluctuate between extreme heat and cold within minutes. Lisa looked worried, but Steve just shrugged. Sounds like my kind of vacation, he said. Kalor's skin changed from green to a pale blue, a sign of distress in Zarthians. Human. Carter, this is not a recreational activity. The Empire's champion has evolved to survive in such conditions. Many species send cybernetically enhanced representatives or those with protective biological adaptations. Steve nodded as if considering this information. Then he turned to Lisa with a calm smile that didn't match the seriousness of the situation. So pack sunscreen and a jacket? Got it. The chamber fell silent. Zarath clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement or contempt. The human accepts? He asked. Steve turned to face the entire chamber. With a casual gesture that would later be included in diplomatic training videos across the galaxy, he handed his datapad to Lisa. Hold my beer. I've got this. The room erupted in confused chatter. Lisa realized too late that the translation devices had preserved Steve's idiom exactly, leaving most aliens completely bewildered by the reference to holding a beverage that wasn't even present. As Steve followed Zarath out of the chamber to prepare for the challenge, Kalor turned to Lisa with all four eyes wide. Your champion does understand this is potentially fatal, yes? The last endurance challenge had 60% casualties among participants. Lisa watched Steve's retreating back. He understands. That's just how he deals with danger. By referencing alcoholic beverages? Kalor asked, confused. It's a human expression, Lisa explained. It usually precedes something either very impressive or very stupid. She paused. Often both. 3 days later, Lisa stood with the other ambassadors at the observation platform overlooking the finish line of the challenge course. The wastelands stretched before them, a hellscape of jagged rocks, bubbling chemical pools, and swirling toxic clouds. Temperature sensors showed it was currently 120 degrees Fahrenheit at the starting line and -30 at the midpoint of the course. The competitors have been in the wastelands for 50 hours, Kalor informed her. 3 have already withdrawn. 2 are missing and presumed dead. Lisa's stomach tightened. Any sign of Steve? No communications have been received from the, human, Kalor said gently. I am sorry, but the environment. Kalor stopped mid-sentence, 4 eyes squinting toward the horizon. That can't be right. Lisa followed the alien's gaze. A small figure was visible in the distance, moving steadily toward the finish line. It wasn't using the expected route, but instead cutting directly across a field of what Lisa had been told was radioactive crystal formations. Is that? She began. Kalor manipulated the observation controls, zooming in on the figure. It was Steve, his protective suit torn in multiple places, face visible through a cracked helmet visor. He was grinning. Impossible, whispered Kalor. The levels of radiation there would kill most species in minutes. The entire observation platform watched in stunned silence as Steve Carter crossed the finish line 2 hours ahead of his nearest competitor. When the decontamination field activated and the outer door of the observation platform opened, he stepped through, removed his damaged helmet, and took a deep breath of clean air. "So," he said casually to the assembled alien dignitaries. "What's for dinner? I'm starving." Lisa hurried to his side, medical scanner in hand. "Steve, are you okay? The radiation levels." "Nothing worse than what we used to get during certain classified missions," he said with a wink. "Besides, my grandmother survived radiation therapy for cancer 6 times. Guess resistance runs in the family." As medics examined him, finding him remarkably unharmed, Zarath approached with an expression that might have been respect. "The human has won," he announced formally. "The Taurus belt belongs to the Confederation." Steve accepted a bottle of water from Lisa and took a long drink before looking up at the towering insectoid alien. "Next time," he said with a smile, "make it challenging." The phrase, "hold my beer," was added to 17 alien language dictionaries that day, with the definition, "a human warning of imminent impossible action. Proceed with extreme caution." The USS Horizon was not supposed to be this close to a neutron star. Captain Daniel Kelly stared at the main view screen, watching as the tiny but incredibly dense star pulled them closer with each passing minute. The ship shuddered as another gravity wave hit them. "Status report," he called, keeping his voice steady despite the situation. "Not good, sir," replied Lieutenant Wu from the navigation console. "Our orbit is decaying faster than predicted. At this rate, we have less than 4 hours before we're pulled in." Daniel nodded. The Horizon was Earth's first true interstellar vessel, built with a mix of human ingenuity and alien technology provided by the Galactic Confederation. They were on a scientific mission to study this remote star system when an unexpected solar flare had damaged their engines, leaving them trapped in the neutron star's gravitational pull. "Engineering, what's our status on the main drive?" Daniel asked over the ship's comm system. Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez's voice came through, accompanied by the sound of alarms and shouting in the background. "The conventional drive is toast, Captain. We're working on repairs, but we need at least 10 hours. "We don't have 10 hours, Daniel said. "I know, I'm working on something else, something crazy." Before Daniel could ask for details, the communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Thrak science vessel." The screen changed to show the face of Captain Shrell, the mantis-like alien commander of the Thrak vessel that had been observing the neutron star from a safe distance when the Horizon ran into trouble. "Captain Kelly," Shrell said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "We have completed our calculations. I regret to inform you that your vessel cannot escape the gravity well with conventional methods. We recommend you abandon ship immediately. We can transport up to 60% of your crew." Daniel looked around at his bridge crew. They had trained for years for this mission, and the Horizon represented humanity's greatest achievement in space exploration. Abandoning it would set Earth's space program back decades. "Thank you for the offer, Captain Shrell, but I'm not ready to abandon my ship. We have another option we're exploring." Shrell's compound eyes seemed to narrow. "There are no other options, Captain. The laws of physics are clear. Your vessel lacks the necessary power to achieve escape velocity." At that moment, Olivia's voice came over the comm again. "Captain, I need you in engineering. Now." Daniel stood. "Sorry, Captain Shrell. I need to check on that other option. Stand by." He hurried to the elevator, trying to ignore the increasingly frequent shudders running through the ship. When he reached engineering, he found chaos. Equipment was scattered everywhere, and crew members were rushing between workstations. In the center of it all stood Olivia, her uniform stained with coolant fluid, her hands covered in burns. "Talk to me, Olivia," he said. She looked up from a tablet covered in complex equations. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but they sparkled with excitement. "The conventional drive is useless right now, but the experimental warp drive isn't damaged," she said. Daniel frowned. "The warp drive isn't designed to work in a gravity well this strong. That's basic physics. Basic physics assumes we're trying to break free of the gravity," Olivia said. "We're not going to fight the gravity, we're going to use it." She handed him the tablet. The screen showed a complex series of calculations and simulations. Daniel's background was in astrophysics, but even he struggled to follow her work. "What am I looking at?" We reconfigure the warp drive to create a localized space-time bubble. Instead of trying to achieve faster-than-light travel, we create a temporary pocket where the laws of physics are flexible. Daniel stared at her. That's theoretical. No one has ever attempted it. No one's ever been desperate enough, Olivia said with a grim smile. Look, the neutron star's gravity is actually perfect for this. We can use it to slingshot around the star while inside our space-time bubble. The bubble protects us from the gravitational forces, and the slingshot gives us the momentum to break free. If you're wrong, we'll be crushed instantly, Daniel pointed out. Olivia nodded. If I'm wrong, we're dead anyway. But I'm not wrong. Daniel studied the calculations again. They were revolutionary, combining elements of human theoretical physics with practical applications of alien technology in ways the Confederation scientists had never considered. How long to set it up? He asked finally. 2 hours, maybe 3. It's going to be close. Daniel tapped his comm badge. Bridge, this is the captain. Alert all hands to prepare for extreme gravitational stress in 3 hours. Secure all stations. He looked back at Olivia. Do it. 3 hours later, the horizon had fallen even closer to the neutron star. The gravitational forces were so strong that the artificial gravity systems could barely compensate, making movement difficult throughout the ship. On the bridge, Daniel watched as the Thrax science vessel maintained its position at a safe distance, still sending regular messages urging them to evacuate. He had explained Olivia's plan, but the alien scientists had dismissed it as impossible. The human concept of bending space-time in this manner violates 17 fundamental laws of physics, Captain Shrell had insisted. Your chief engineer's theory is flawed. As the final countdown approached, Olivia appeared on the bridge. Her uniform was now almost completely soaked in coolant fluid, and fresh burns covered her arms. She looked exhausted but determined. It's ready, she said simply. Will it work? Daniel asked quietly. The math checks out, she replied. Then, with surprising confidence, she added, It's crazy, but it'll work. She turned to the communications officer. Put me through to the Thrax vessel. When Captain Shrell's face appeared on screen, Olivia stepped forward. Captain, we're about to attempt our escape. I recommend you back up to a minimum distance of 50,000 kilometers. The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Chief Engineer Martinez, our scientists have reviewed your calculations. What you propose is impossible. You will destroy your vessel and potentially create a dangerous space-time anomaly. Olivia smiled and raised her coffee mug in a casual salute. Hold my coffee. You might want to back up a bit. The alien captain's translator seemed to struggle with the idiom, but the meaning was clear enough. He immediately ordered his vessel to retreat to a safer distance. Olivia turned to Daniel and nodded. Ready when you are, Captain. Daniel took a deep breath and gave the order. Activate the modified warp drive. The ship hummed as the experimental drive powered up. On the view screen, they could see the twisted space around the neutron star, the deadly radiation that would tear them apart in seconds without their shields. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the view outside began to distort. Stars stretched and blurred. The neutron star itself seemed to warp in impossible ways. It's working, Olivia shouted over the growing noise. The bubble is forming. The ship began to accelerate, moving faster as it approached the neutron star. According to all normal physics, they should have been crushed instantly. Instead, they curved around it in a perfect slingshot maneuver, gathering speed until they were hurled away from the deadly star. As they emerged from the space-time bubble, the normal star field reappeared on the view screen. Behind them, the neutron star was now just a bright point of light, growing more distant by the second. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Daniel checked the ship's position and found they were clear of the gravity well and on a stable course. The communications officer looked up. Captain, the Thrax vessel is hailing us. They sound confused. Daniel smiled. Put them through. Captain Shrell's face appeared, his compound eyes wider than Daniel had ever seen them. Captain Kelly, you have survived. Our sensors indicate You performed a maneuver that violates multiple laws of physics. Daniel glanced at Olivia, who was grinning despite her exhaustion. Sometimes, Captain Shrell, Daniel said. Humans don't believe in impossible. Ryan Cooper never wanted to be a diplomat. 6 months ago, he had been tending bar in Boston, using his degree in cultural anthropology to impress girls rather than for any practical purpose. Then the aliens arrived. Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, and suddenly experts in cultural studies were in high demand. Now he stood in the grand hall of the Moldarian Supreme Council, wearing formal diplomatic attire and trying not to stare at the imposing aliens around him. The Moldarians were tall and slender, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. They had 4 arms and moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy by comparison. Remember, whispered Susan Lee, the head of Earth's diplomatic mission, the Moldarians have the strictest social hierarchy in the Confederation. One wrong move could set our trade negotiations back years. Ryan nodded. He had spent weeks studying Moldarian customs and etiquette. Their society was built on complex rules of behavior that had evolved over thousands of years. As Earth's cultural attaché, his job was to navigate these rules without causing offense. The Grand Hall was filled with representatives from various alien species, all gathered for the annual Moldarian Ascension ceremony. Earth had finally been invited to participate, a sign that humans were gaining acceptance in the galactic community. The ritual drinking will begin soon, Susan said. According to the briefing, the drink causes mild hallucinations for most species, but should be harmless to humans. It's considered deeply disrespectful to refuse. Ryan took his place in the formal line as tall Moldarian servants began to distribute ornate crystal chalices filled with a glowing blue liquid. When a servant handed him a chalice, Ryan bowed precisely as he had been taught, taking care to hold the vessel with both hands as was proper. The high priest of the Moldarians, an elderly alien whose skin had faded to an almost white color, stood on a platform at the center of the hall. He raised his own chalice. "We drink to the unity of worlds," the high priest announced, his words translated through the small device in Ryan's ear. "We drink to share visions and understanding across the stars." Everyone in the hall raised their chalices in response and then drank. Ryan sipped the blue liquid cautiously. It tasted like mint and honey with a strange metallic aftertaste. He waited for the hallucinations to begin. Around him, the other diplomats began to react to the drink. Susan's eyes widened and she stared at her hands as if seeing something amazing. The Zalarian ambassador next to Ryan began to sway slightly, humming a strange melody. Even the normally reserved Thrak representatives were making excited clicking sounds as they experienced the drink's effects. But Ryan felt nothing. No visions, no altered perceptions, not even a buzz like alcohol would give. He took another sip, thinking perhaps he hadn't had enough. Still nothing. After several minutes, the high priest began to move through the crowd, stopping briefly to speak with each diplomat about what they were experiencing. When he reached Ryan, he tilted his head curiously. "Human Cooper, what visions do the sacred waters bring to you?" he asked. Ryan hesitated. Lying would be disrespectful, but so would admitting that the ceremonial drink had no effect on him. "I'm afraid I'm not experiencing any visions, High Priest," he admitted. The hall grew quieter as nearby aliens turned to look at him. The High Priest's inner light seemed to dim slightly. "This is most unusual," the High Priest said. "The sacred waters affect all sentient beings. Are you not drinking properly?" Ryan took another long sip to demonstrate. "I am drinking, Your Holiness. Perhaps humans process the active ingredient differently." The High Priest studied him with large, multifaceted eyes. "Why would your species be immune to the sacred experience?" Ryan thought quickly. The truth was probably his best option, but he needed to frame it carefully. "In my college years, that's our higher education system, I participated in many spiritual ceremonies involving various substances," Ryan explained. "After 4 years in what we call a fraternity, my tolerance for mind-altering substances became quite developed." This created a buzz of conversation among the Moldarians. The High Priest's inner light brightened with what Ryan hoped was interest rather than offense. "You have experience with many mind-altering substances?" the High Priest asked. More than is probably healthy, Ryan admitted. It was part of our social bonding rituals. To Ryan's relief, the high priest seemed fascinated rather than offended. Tell me more about these human bonding rituals. Ryan was about to explain when he had an idea. During his bartending days, he had learned dozens of tricks to entertain customers. Perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than an explanation. If you want to see something impressive, Ryan said. Then, without thinking about the potential consequences, he handed his ceremonial chalice to the high priest. Hold my drink. I'll show you a real human party trick. The room fell completely silent. Susan looked like she might faint. Handing a sacred chalice to the high priest was completely outside protocol. Ryan suddenly realized his mistake, but it was too late to take it back. To everyone's surprise, the high priest accepted the chalice with his upper set of arms. His inner light pulsed with curiosity. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out 5 coins he kept for good luck. With practiced ease, he began to manipulate them between his fingers, making them appear and disappear, roll across his knuckles, and jump from hand to hand in a complex pattern. The Moldarians watched in absolute silence. Ryan added more flourishes, spinning 2 coins simultaneously while flipping the others in a cascade. It was a trick he had perfected over hundreds of slow nights at the bar. When he finished with a dramatic flip that ended with all 5 coins stacked on the back of his hand, the hall remained silent for a long moment. Then the high priest began to pulse with a bright golden light, a sign Ryan didn't recognize from his studies. The human manipulates solid matter with such precision, the high priest announced to the hall, without technology or special abilities, using only skill acquired through practice. He handed the chalice back to Ryan with a formal gesture that seemed improvised for the occasion. This is a form of art we have not witnessed before, the high priest continued. Would you be willing to teach this skill to our young ones? It would be a valuable addition to our understanding of physical manipulation. Ryan glanced at Susan, who looked stunned but gave a small nod. I would be honored, Ryan said, bowing in the Moldarian style. The high priest's inner light glowed brighter. Then let us amend our trade agreements. We wish to include cultural exchange programs focused on these party tricks and other human physical arts. Later, as the Earth delegation returned to their quarters, Susan shook her head in disbelief. You handed the high priest your sacred chalice, one of the most serious protocol violations possible, and ended up improving our trade deal, she said. I've been in diplomacy for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Ryan shrugged. Sometimes breaking the rules works out. What does hold my drink mean anyway? Susan asked. The translators kept it literal, and the Moldarians have been asking about it all night. It's just something people say before they do something impressive or stupid, Ryan explained, often both at the same time. The phrase, hold my drink, was added to the official Moldarian diplomatic lexicon the next day, defined as a human request preceding an unexpected demonstration of skill or art, to be treated with highest respect. 5 years had passed since first contact. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Alien technology improved human lives, and humanity's unique approach to problems earned them both respect and wariness throughout the galaxy. But now, all of that progress faced its greatest threat. Admiral Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, Earth's most advanced warship. The main screen showed a terrifying sight. 3 planets reduced to rubble by the Voidborn, ancient enemies of all life who had emerged from the darkness between galaxies. Report, Sam ordered, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. The Voidborn fleet has destroyed the Proxima Centauri colony, reported her second-in-command, Commander Jackson. They're moving toward Alpha Centauri next. If they take that system, Earth is directly in their path. Sam nodded grimly. The Voidborn were unlike any enemy the Galactic Confederation had faced before. They weren't interested in conquest or negotiation. They existed only to destroy all other life forms. Their ships were massive black spheres that absorbed energy attacks and shrugged off physical weapons. Where's the rest of the Galactic Defense Fleet? She asked. Assembling at Alpha Centauri, Jackson replied. But many species are pulling back to defend their home worlds. They believe this fight is already lost. Sam looked at the tactical display. Nearly 30 alien vessels had gathered at Alpha Centauri, along with 15 Earth ships. It wasn't enough, and everyone knew it. "Set course for Alpha Centauri, maximum speed," she ordered, "and get me a channel to all Earth vessels." When they arrived at Alpha Centauri 12 hours later, Sam called a meeting of all fleet commanders aboard the Defender. Aliens of various species gathered in the ship's conference room, their faces showing different signs of fear. "The Voidborn will reach this system in less than 24 hours, said Admiral Kree of the Zalarian fleet. "Their weapons can destroy a planet in minutes. We cannot stop them with conventional tactics." "Then we need unconventional tactics," Sam replied. She turned to Lieutenant Greg Patel, her tactical officer. "Lieutenant, share your idea with the group." Greg stepped forward. He was young for his position, only 32, but he had a brilliant mind for strategy. "The Voidborn ships are nearly impervious to our weapons, but they do have one weakness. Their central command vessel coordinates all attacks. If we could disable it, the rest of their fleet would be vulnerable." "And how do you propose to disable a ship that absorbs all energy weapons and is protected by hundreds of support vessels?" asked Captain Zorn of the Thrak. Greg activated a holographic display showing the Voidborn fleet. A small strike team in a stealth craft could approach the command ship, while the main fleet provides a distraction. Once aboard, we could plant explosive devices at key points to disable it from within. The alien commanders exchanged looks of disbelief. "What you suggest is suicide," said Admiral Kree. "No ship could get close enough without being detected. Earth's newest stealth technology combined with Zarthian cloaking methods might give us a chance," Greg argued. "A small team could slip through while their attention is focused on the main fleet." After hours of debate, the alien commanders reluctantly agreed to the plan, though none offered to join the strike team. As they filed out to prepare their ships, Commander Vrex, now Earth's ambassador to the Confederation, approached Sam. "This plan has a very low probability of success," Vrex said quietly. "It's the only plan we have," Sam replied. Vrex nodded. "Then I wish to volunteer for the strike team. My knowledge of Voidborn technology may prove useful." Sam looked at him with newfound respect. "Thank you, Ambassador." As preparations continued through the night, Greg assembled his team. 11 humans from various ships and 3 Zalarian specialists who volunteered despite their commander's objections. They gathered in the launch bay where their small stealth craft waited. Sam came to see them off. The mood was tense as the team made final checks on their equipment. Everyone knew this could be a one-way mission. Greg approached Sam with a small object in his hand. It was an old magnetic compass, a family heirloom he always carried for luck. "Hold this for me, Admiral," he said, placing it in her palm. "I expect it back." Sam closed her fingers around the compass. She understood what he was really saying. "I plan to return." "You'll get it back, Lieutenant," she promised. "Complete your mission and come home." As Greg boarded the stealth craft, Ambassador Vrex stood beside Sam watching. "Your species baffles me," Vrex said quietly. "You joke in the face of certain death." "It's not joking," Sam replied, clutching the compass. "It's promising to come back." The stealth craft launched silently, disappearing against the backdrop of space. Sam returned to the bridge to prepare the fleet for the coming battle. 6 hours later, the Voidborn arrived. Their ships emerged from jump points, massive black spheres that seemed to absorb the very light around them. At the center of their formation was the command vessel, twice the size of the others. "All ships engage the enemy," Sam ordered. "Keep their attention away from Sector 7. Sector 7 was where Greg's team would be approaching the command ship. The battle was unlike anything Sam had ever experienced. The Voidborn weapons cut through ships like they were made of paper. The Galactic fleet fought bravely, but they were outmatched. Sam watched as ship after ship was destroyed. "Any word from the strike team?" she asked Jackson. "Nothing yet," he replied grimly. "They should have reached the command ship by now." Sam clutched Greg's compass, hoping for a miracle. As another Earth vessel exploded nearby, her communications officer called out, "Admiral, I'm receiving a transmission from Lieutenant Patel." "Put it through," Sam ordered. Greg's voice came through, broken by static. "We're in. Planted charges. Discovered. Fighting our way. Need 10 minutes. Copy that, Sam replied. You've got your 10 minutes. She turned to her tactical officer. Direct all remaining ships to concentrate fire on the port side of the Voidborn fleet. Draw them away from the command ship. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Sam's life. 3 more Earth ships were destroyed, and the alien vessels were falling back. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, a series of explosions bloomed across the surface of the Voidborn command ship. They did it! Jackson shouted. The massive black sphere began to drift, its weapons going silent. Throughout the Voidborn fleet, other ships began to slow and lose formation. All ships attack now, Sam ordered. Without central coordination, the Voidborn ships were vulnerable. The Galactic fleet surged forward, targeting the now disorganized enemy. Any sign of our strike team? Sam asked. Jackson shook his head. No escape craft detected. Sam refused to give up hope. As the battle turned in their favor, she ordered search teams to scan the debris field around the damaged Voidborn command ship. Hours later, as the last Voidborn vessel was destroyed, a small signal appeared on the sensors. Admiral, Jackson, called. We've found them. Their stealth craft was damaged, but they managed to launch an escape pod. We're bringing them aboard now. Sam hurried to the medical bay. When the doors opened, she saw Greg on a stretcher, badly injured, but alive. 3 other humans and 1 Zalarian had also survived. Sam approached Greg's bedside and placed the compass in his hand. As promised, Lieutenant. Greg managed a weak smile. Never doubted it, Admiral. As medical teams worked to stabilize the survivors, Ambassador Vrex approached Sam. The normally reserved alien showed signs of what she had learned to recognize as deep emotion. I have seen many species face death, Admiral Wright, Vrex said, but none like humans. Your lieutenant discovered a weakness in the Voidborn shields that our scientists missed. When we were discovered, he held off enemy forces alone, while the rest of us planted explosives. That sounds like Greg, Sam said. When I asked why he would sacrifice himself, he said something I did not understand until now. Vrex paused. He said, some things are worth dying for, but I'm not planning on dying today. Sam smiled. That's humanity for you, Ambassador. We don't believe in no-win scenarios. In the weeks that followed, hold my beer entered the galactic lexicon as a formal military term. Across thousands of worlds, it came to signify humanity's unique approach to seemingly impossible challenges, a blend of recklessness, ingenuity, and unshakable hope that would forever change the course of galactic history.